This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show. Each episode, you can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com, find the blog at obsessiveviewer.com, and you can also subscribe to the subreddit at Reddit at r/obsessiveviewer. And if you want to help support the podcast, go to patreon.com/obsessiveviewer, or you can simply leave us a rating and review on iTunes. It helps us out a ton. Also, follow me and Tiny on Letterboxd. Our usernames are Obsessive Viewer and Obsessive Tiny, respectfully. I need to update mine quite a bit.
Oh, me too.
Yeah, I'm behind on mine. Tiny, how's it going?
Wonderful. How are you, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. Also, before we get started, this week we're talking about TV one-season wonders. But before that, we're going to talk a little bit about some news, movie and TV-related news. But before that, I want to mention that next week we will have a bonus episode devoted to 11/22/63, in which it's just me and I'm joined by Brian Davids from Film Schlub's podcast. It was a lot of fun chatting with him and finally getting him on the podcast, and I'm excited for you guys to listen to it next week. Also, last week on the podcast we talked about or I put a review of Stagecoach that I had recorded in an episode that we didn't release. And I was telling this to Tiny off mic, but it's kind of funny. I don't know if I'd say funny.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but there were static issues throughout the recording at the time that we recorded it. And so I mentioned that I might throw it, if listeners don't mind the sound quality, which that section of the podcast that I put into last week's episode was actually pretty clean. Then we'd put it out as a full episode, which I might still do that. I'll probably still do that. But it was kind of funny because when I was when I was editing last week's episode and I got to the point where I was editing that clip and putting it in there, I suddenly realized that part of the reason why I didn't release it or didn't take the time to really edit it and try to cut out the static cleanly enough was that we recorded it like a week after my dad passed away.
Right.
And if you go back and listen to that, like you can tell like from our episode last week and the section that I put in the podcast talking about Stagecoach, there's a very, very, very big drop in the sound of my voice. So that was another reason why I didn't release that episode, is because I wasn't in a good frame of mind when recording it. But still, I'm going to edit it, and then I think we're going to make it into a B-roll episode next week.
Cool.
Probably, hopefully. So
that's hilarious.
That. Oh, it's hilarious.
Oh, God. Oh, knee slapper.
Yeah, bringing the podcast in on a positive note. Or, oh, Jesus. Anyway, So news, Tiny. We've been kind of doing little brief news segments here and there on the podcast recently.
Yep.
And this week we have quite a bit.
We do.
Yeah. So let's just run through these. These will be brief. I haven't really researched them as much as I would have liked to, but the title for the standalone or the 15th Spider-Man reboot in as many years. The title for it, the Marvel/Sony co-produced one, was released. It's going to be called Spider-Man Homecoming, which it is what it is.
It just sounds bad.
It does, but I don't know. I think it has some ties to the comics, or it has some relevance to the comics. But our friends at the Nerds You're Looking For podcast, they know more about this stuff than we do. So check out their recent episode reviewing The Walking Dead season 6 is where they bring it up. They brought up the different titles that were leaked or whatever, but that was one of the titles in contention that were rumored to be. And they brought up that it sounds more like it's a homecoming dance.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I thought of.
Yeah. So I thought that was funny. So check them out at thenerdspodcast.com.
Oh man.
Yeah. Speaking of Marvel, Doctor Strange trailer came out.
Yeah, I feel like it came out of nowhere.
It kind of did. I think last week they kind of teased it, or they announced that it was going to come out, but yeah, it kind of came out. What'd you think of it, Tiny?
It looks pretty strange. Hey.
I thought it looked pretty doctor, but you know.
Nice.
Stupid.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like 99% of the people who exist in the world don't even know who Doctor Strange is, and I'm among them. So it's hard to be excited about it, I think, even with the trailer and my no homo love for Benedict Cumberbatch. Yeah, it just looks kind of weird. I'm not overly excited about it, but I'll definitely see it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks good. I love Benedict Cumberbatch, and I mean, at this point, I'm just a Marvel zombie.
Yeah.
I mean, unless they release something of like Fantastic Four, or to a much lesser extent, Batman v Superman, if they fumble something that badly, that's when I'll start having concerns over it. But even with their persistent villain problem, I still have fun with these movies, so I'll still see it sight unseen, no matter what. The trailer looked cool. I only watched it once. I've been trying to kind of wean myself off of watching trailers or trying to dissect trailers, so I didn't really pay full attention to it. But it kind of seemed like part of it was like there was a part at the end where Stephen Strange says, "Teach me," and it just feels like another origin story kind of thing. So yeah. I don't know the context of it or anything like that, but I'm a little wary for that. But like I said, I'm a Marvel zombie. So moving right along, other news. By the way, Doctor Strange comes out like November, I think. Okay. Yeah, we're not very prepared here. But the next piece of information is kind of positive or kind of exciting. Uh-huh. They confirmed that Ben Affleck is going to direct and star in a solo Batman movie, and I think it said that it should come out in the next 5 years. So, Tanya, what are your thoughts on this after seeing Batman v Superman?
Well, seeing as how, personally at least, I think Batfleck was probably the best part of the movie, arguably. I mean, you can make a case for Wonder Woman too. She was awesome. Mm-hmm. But, you know, I think is just an awesome representation of the character of Batman and Bruce Wayne. I'm excited for it because, I don't know, I think he embodied the character well, seeing the darkness, the level of darkness that the character went to with Ben Affleck at the helm. Mm-hmm. Was encouraging. And it was surprising given the fact that we just came off the ridiculously successful and good Dark Knight trilogy. Right. I don't think any of us were necessarily looking for a new Batman. Mm-hmm. But when we got one, heck, I was really impressed. And I mean, I feel like there's so much more there to the character that we can explore that I'm fine with another Batman movie coming out so soon.
Yeah, me too. And like I said in our Batman v Superman review, I wish that this I wish that this thing came out before Batman v Superman and that their entire release model was different, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
However, there was a really funny tweet that I read. I don't remember who said it or who tweeted it, and I wish I did. If I did, I would credit it. But it was someone on Twitter. I'm not taking credit for this in any way. It might have been Angie Hahn from /film.com. Anyway, someone tweeted and said, and this is light spoilers for Batman v Superman. So if you haven't seen it, or if you want to be completely unsullied from Batman v Superman, skip ahead like 30 seconds while I say this tweet. Starting now, just skip ahead 30 or 45 seconds. So slight spoiler for Batman v Superman. But the tweet said, that the solo Batman movie is going to have Batman finding Martha Nigma and Martha Freeze or something like the mothers of all of his villains are going to be named Martha, and that's going to be the end of it. But I butchered that tweet completely, but it was funny. If I find it, I'll link it in the show notes or something. But
nice. Good one.
Yeah, it was really funny. I might cut that from the episode, but yeah. So I mean, you know, Batfleck, he was great in the movie with what he was given. Ben Affleck behind the scenes is going to do a hell of a lot better than Zack Snyder could ever dream of doing any of them. So
I think so too.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a win-win really. There. So we'll see. We'll reserve judgment until we see it, but Batman. It should be interesting. It should be interesting.
Totes.
Finally, our final piece of news for the week in this episode is Rogue One, a Star Wars story. The trailer was released. Tiny, are you prepared for what I'm about to say?
Well, since I don't know what you're going to say, I don't know if I'm prepared for it.
Okay, cool. Thanks for playing along. No, I have not seen the Star Wars, the Rogue One, a Star Wars story trailer.
Really?
Yes, because I have made it my personal mission to not see any promotional material, not click any Star Wars link, nothing until I see the movie.
Wow.
So, yeah. I've seen some GIFs, but that's about it.
Crazy.
Apparently, Ben Mendelsohn has a cool cape, but that's the extent of my knowledge of it. So, what did you think of the Rogue One trailer, Tiny?
I mean, I loved it. I mean, there's no way I wasn't going to. The franchise is just really... It's really committed to this return to form kind of thing, which I think a lot of people think it was maybe too much of a return, because one of the bigger complaints about Episode 7 is that it was basically just a rehash of A New Hope, and I understand why people feel that way, but this is going back all the way to that original trilogy and pulling a story from it and turning it into a whole movie, and I'm just really excited because we're going back to that time. They brought us back to the universe, or this franchise, brought us back to the franchise with Episode 7, and this is going even deeper. I don't know. I think it's I'm excited for it. I love the cast involved. I just think it's going to be cool.
Me too.
Rian Johnson directing, is that right?
No, this is Gareth Edwards.
Gareth Edwards. Rian Johnson's doing Episode 8.
He's doing Episode 8, yes.
Right, that's right. Okay.
Which there was also there was also an awesome picture of Mark Hamill on Daisy Ridley's back, while filming on the back lot or whatever of what was the studio? Pinewood Studios, I think.
Okay.
While filming Episode 8, it's mimicking the scene from Empire Strikes Back where Yoda's on Luke's back.
That's awesome.
So awesome, but. But yeah, so I have no thoughts on Rogue One, except for I'm excited for it just in principle, and I like the idea of them going back and doing these anthology stories and filling in and all that. And you mentioned that people complained about The Force Awakens being a rehash and everything, but I mean I actually bought it on Blu-ray.
Nice.
Matt Hurt, the guy who kind of trashed the entire franchise a few months ago. But anyway, I bought it on Blu-ray, and I've watched it. I thought about this, and I've watched, at this point, between theater viewings and on home video, I've watched, I don't know how many times I've watched the original trilogy or the prequel trilogy, the original saga. I don't know how many times I've seen them in my life. It's not that high.
Mm-hmm.
I would say each one probably less than a dozen, and the prequels even far less than that. But at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if I've seen Star Wars The Force Awakens more times than any of the other movies.
Wow.
Because I saw it 4 times in the theater and once at home.
Wow.
So anyway, so to your point about people being upset about it being a rehash and everything, it's still probably one of the most watchable movies for me right now. So
nice.
Yeah.
What's the actress who's going to be the lead in Rogue One?
Felicity Jones.
Felicity Jones.
Yeah, she was in The Danish Girl, and no, she wasn't. Hang on.
No, she was in Stephen Hawking movie.
Yeah. Oh my God. The Theory of Everything.
Theory of Everything.
That I think was ridiculously high on my top 10 list that year.
I think it was number 1, wasn't it?
I think it was.
Yeah.
Which I still want us to do a special episode for our 3-year anniversary.
I bet you do.
Yeah, to rectify that. But anyway, yeah, she was in The Theory of Everything.
Yeah, she was phenomenal in it. She was nominated for an Oscar.
Oh yeah, she was great. She was great.
I love her. She's fantastic.
Oh, she's amazing, and I'm sure that she's gonna just be fantastic in it.
Mm-hmm.
She's gonna be a ray of sunshine on it, and she's gonna be just fantastic in it. You gotta haunt it to me. That was pretty good.
Stop. Oh, man.
All right,
Can we move on to the next one?
The tension in here is getting pretty chewy. What did you...
Good God.
Was your thing a Rogue One thing?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Nice. I like it.
No, it wasn't. It
Oh,
wasn't nice. The whole subtitle, A Star Wars Story.
I don't like that.
Kind of weird.
Yeah, I think that it would be better served if it was like Star Wars Anthology, Rogue One. That would just be
that'd be cool.
good,
Star Wars Anthology, I'd like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just gives it like it almost signifies like they're treating it like a B movie.
Sort of, yeah.
Maybe,
a Star
I don't
Wars
know.
story. I mean, it kind of feels like. I mean, I guess that title kind of seems a little in the spirit of old like movie serials.
Okay.
Which was one of the big bases for the original trilogy.
Okay.
It's that episodic kind of serialized kind of film. But
Yeah.
I mean, is every standalone movie going to be a Star Wars story?
Right.
Like Han Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll see. But after The Force Awakens, I have faith that they're going to do something unique and interesting with all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, we should get started on our topic.
That was a lot of news.
There was a lot of news, and we were not equipped to cover it. But anyway, so this week on the podcast, we have kind of an interesting topic for us to discuss here, and we were at a point where we were basically at a loss for what topic we were going to do this week.
Mm-hmm.
And we pitched one, or I pitched one to Tiny, and we ran with it. And we were planning on doing it, but then while I was making the list and everything, I was like, well, let's do something else because I'm just not feeling this one. So we picked on this one, which is TV one season wonders. Mm-hmm. And I think that this, I don't know if all of these ones on that we're going to bring up had full seasons. Mm-hmm. I think one at least definitely didn't. So they're not going to be truly like one full season wonders, but they're like TV shows that were canceled during or after their first season aired.
Right.
And so in this will be interesting because there's a lot of television out there, and a lot of failed television that gets a cult following either on Blu-ray or of late, like Netflix and Hulu and stuff like that. Like, so I mean, like there are shows that get a fan base, and then when that show goes away, that fan base becomes vocal. And some of these shows are, those cult classics, and a couple other ones aren't that well known. So we're looking forward to it. But we encourage everyone listening to email us and tweet us and everything, and let us know what your favorite TV show one season wonder is. And so should we commence with our discussion?
Absolutely.
Of this thing? Yeah. Is there anything I missed about the essence of the one season wonder?
Well, I think of all the ones we're going to mention, I don't think any of them absolutely like suck or anything. I think these are shows that weren't canceled because they're just not good. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe they're not fantastic or great shows.
And one of them kind of sucked.
Did it? Okay, it's,
for me.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
I think there was something to grasp or something to enjoy about all these seasons, all these shows who only had one season. Some of them are phenomenal, and some of them are not so good. But I don't know. I don't think these shows were necessarily canceled because of their quality. I think it was just about, they couldn't find an audience or this or that. I just kind of think that's worth noting. Yeah,
that's a good point. There's some in this list that we're going to talk about. Some of them are freaks and some of them are geeks and everything, but and I mean some of them the TV show studios, they didn't really they were in a place where it was undeclared whether or not they would renew it or anything, but
the studios just didn't have enough drive to get them done.
They didn't. Yeah, they didn't. They in their minds they didn't flash forward to the future to see what kind of following they would have.
They were too busy trying to control their own universe where they drive their fancy cars and fly their planes and groom their own Terriers and. Dear God.
Studio 60.
Undeclared.
Jesus.
That was ridiculous.
That was so ridiculous. So let's go ahead and we have 6, 7, 8, 9 shows that we're going to talk about. I'm going to double up on each one of my turns, and I'm going to get us kicked off because this is kind of these two shows. One of them, at least, is probably, I would argue that it is one of the most well-known shows on this list.
I think so.
And with the most beloved cult following, with a very, very close second with your first one. So anyway, enough dilly-dallying, but the first show I'm going to bring up is Freaks and Geeks. And I didn't prepare notes for like when this aired and when the shows aired and when they were canceled and what networks and all that. So bear with me. I'm just going to go through my history with the shows personally from my perspective. So Freaks and Geeks, I was a late bloomer to this. I think that it was airing reruns or something. No, I don't even know if that was the case, but I remember seeing it, or I think I blind bought the DVD because of all the internet hype around it. And I mean, this is such a charming and poignant and honest look at youth in the 80s. And kind of nowadays it's kind of, I guess, I don't know if I'd say fashionable, but it's kind of a trend where you get period set shows, like at least in sitcoms too, sitcoms and dramedies and dramas. I mean, I'm thinking of this is a bit of a stretch, but like Mad Men and that 70s show I think might have come before Freaks and Geeks, but and then also now the Goldbergs, the sitcom on TV now on ABC, I think. So it's like these period set shows are pretty happening.
Yeah, they're kind of popular.
Yeah, and what I think what separates Freaks and Geeks, or what made me connect to Freaks and Geeks, was just the sheer honesty of it. One like the brains behind it was Paul Feig, who I read a couple of his books. He has a couple adolescent memoir books. That are just, I mean, they are freaking hysterical.
Yeah, like, the candor is just amazing.
It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. And some of the stuff that happened to him in his childhood, he put into Freaks and Geeks. Like, like the whole part where he's running through the school naked because the bullies took his clothes from gym class. That was completely lifted from his real life.
Yeah.
And and I mean, just Freaks and Geeks just had it set out, and it set out and had so much potential for future seasons, because you had a very diverse group of characters. And characters from which you could mine really unique stories from, and it could be varied throughout it, because you had different sections of characters, different groupings of characters, the Freaks and the Geeks. And then even they had like supporting characters that there was the episode where Busy Phillips's character, Kim Kelly.
Yes.
Yeah. The episode was titled "Kim Kelly is a Friend," I think, or "Is My Friend," or something like that. But like that's a very kind of brutal episode and very dramatic episode.
Absolutely.
About her home life and everything like that. So yeah, it's just a shame that this show didn't last and they didn't give a chance. I mean, it delved into some really intense stuff. There was a divorce aspect to it, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and I just remember one of the standouts, and maybe we can go through this point by point, if they pop out to us. But one of the like standout moments of the series for me was the Halloween episode, and the sheer empathy I had for Sam Ware in that episode, in the Halloween episode, where he's out with his friends and he gets egged, and like he has that moment where he looks back and he sees that it's his sister that egged him, and it's just like that just hit me in the feels, because I could just like. This is a super insecure. I don't know what this says about me, by the way. This is a super insecure teenager who has very niche interests and things that he likes and all that. And he's coming into his own. This is his coming of age, and he's out with his friends. He's dressed up. I can't remember what he was dressed up as, but I know.
I don't remember either.
I know that his friends were dressed up as kind of nerdy things. But like he's kind of out of his shell, and then he just gets egged, and it's just like the pain of that moment was just I felt so empathetic toward him.
Yeah,
and it was just it was brutal.
Yeah. I think one thing, I think why this show has such a cult following is because it has, even though it takes place in the 80s and it's kind of, in several ways it's kind of about the 80s, it really transcends generations, you know, because I mean, there's always, you know, freaks and geeks is just it's just a term for, you know, an outcast and I don't know, arguably just someone who's really into things,
right?
If you will.
They're just labels.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And those people exist throughout every generation, including our own. And so I wasn't a freak or a geek, but there's, like Matt mentioned, there's a lot of great ancillary characters who aren't necessarily freaks or geeks either, and I think there's a character that you can relate to, in this, that anyone can relate to through the entire show. One of my favorite storylines is where the coach, I think he is a coach, but he's the PE teacher, yeah. Played by Wilson. Tom Wilson?
Tom Wilson?
Is this Tom Wilson? Yeah.
Biff.
Biff, yeah. He's dating one of the main character's moms, and the character is a huge dork and a big geek. And
Sam Levine.
Yeah. No, it was
it? I thought it was
Martin Starr.
That was Martin Starr, yeah.
Yeah. And he, you know, he's trying to connect with this kid.
That's right.
Who's not into sports at all. So yeah, it's not like he has any animosity towards this kid. It's just like he's trying to find a way to connect with him, and I think maybe the jock in me kind of related to that. I don't know. So it's just, there's those moments and those threads that, like I said, it transcends labels and it transcends generations. It's a very universal show, while still being really unique. And I think the show kind of suffered. The show suffered the trend of, I think, network dramas just trending out, because this was on Fox, correct?
I'm going to say it was NBC.
It may be NBC. I can't remember, but it was on a network, and I think this is when network dramas started to kind of take a downturn. It's when it started, but
it wasn't a Doctor, Lawyer, Cop episode or show.
Exactly. There was no procedure.
It was a
to
procedural.
It. Yeah. So I think it suffered from that trend. Maybe is, I think, probably one of the primary reasons why it didn't get renewed, and why, I don't know, audiences just didn't. It never found a big audience. And I just think that's, given its universality and its ability to connect with anyone, it's really a shame that happened.
Absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, Shout Factory just released it on Blu-ray.
Awesome.
$75 on Amazon, and it is, honestly, it's tempting. It's tempting. Just to have it, because I mean, it's a complete HD transfer of it. It's like it's a new transfer of it, and it supposedly looks like incredible.
Wow.
So yeah, if you want to donate $75 for me to own this, please do that.
Nice.
So yeah, that's Freaks and Geeks, and I said I was gonna double up on this one, and I'm gonna stand by that. Kind of not really a continuation of Freaks and Geeks, but it was a spirited successor kind of thing. A year or two after Freaks and Geeks was canceled, Judd Apatow, who was one of the executive producers on Freaks and Geeks, he started Undeclared I think it was on Fox. And Undeclared was a brilliant sitcom about college life and college freshmen and kind of discovering yourself and adapting to the college lifestyle. Right. It wasn't as like heartfelt and poignant and dramedy-esque as Freaks and Geeks. It was more of a straight sitcom.
Yeah.
But man, it was such a great show.
It was.
And and it's funny because I actually, this is, I don't know if I'd say this is embarrassing, but this is just this is kind of a note on my way of thinking in terms of social situations and stuff. Mm-hmm. But the summer before I went to college for the 1 year I went to college, I went to USI in Evansville. It's where I met Mike, who was our podcast co-host, who was on sabbatical from the podcast. Like the summer before is when Undeclared hit DVD, because I think the show was canceled in 2001. Or maybe 2002, I'm not sure. But anyway, it was canceled and it hit DVD finally the summer before I went to Evansville to go to college. And I just knew, like, oh, it's apparently a really good college comedy. So I was like, I'm gonna buy it and see what it's all about. And I fell in love with it. I absolutely fell in love with it. There are so many like really talented actors in this show.
Yeah.
There's Jason Segel playing a creepy stalker. Or creepy ex who's infatuated with his long distance girlfriend is actually what the storyline is. And then Jay Baruchel is the kind of the focal character or focal actor in it. What was her name? She was on. This is a poll. Dawson's Creek.
The blonde girl.
Yeah,
I can't remember her name. She hasn't done much. Either.
She hasn't. But she was great in it, and also, of course, there was Charlie Hunnam, pre Sons of Anarchy, obviously Seth Rogen,
mm-hmm.
And just a bunch of really talented people, and the chemistry between the characters was fantastic. There's a great episode called Truth or Dare, where they kind of the central like romantic subplot kind of reaches a. Not a peak, but it reaches a big moment, basically. And the way that episode plays out is just so fantastic. I think that episode was actually written by Seth Rogen. And I think in the commentary on the DVD or in the notes in the insert, Seth Rogen talked about how much crap he got from his friends because in the episode he kisses Busy Phillips' character, and he and Busy Phillips were friends from their Freaks and Geeks days,
right?
And so I think it was that he felt self-conscious about it because it would seem that he wrote that he wrote himself kissing Busy Phillips when they're actually really good friends, and it was just kind of awkward for him. So it was really interesting. And I think part of the notes is that if you look closely, you can see that I have a boner, which isn't not that I looked, but it's him joking.
That's funny.
But yeah, and also really great guest stars throughout the season. I'm not sure if they had a full season, but there was an episode with Will Ferrell.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Oh my god, it was so funny. He basically plays a guy who lives on campus who has long since been out of school, but the students at the school pay him to write their papers.
Yeah, and
it's just it's utterly fantastic. It's amazing. And then there's also an episode centered around Adam Sandler, who appears playing himself. We should have done that for Summer Sandler. We should have just rewatched that episode. Yeah.
I think wasn't there an unknown Kevin Hart in an episode or two?
Yeah, was there?
I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
He was like the Christian guy.
Yeah. Yes.
He tried to convert, or basically like get someone to be like really religious with him. That's all I really
think
remember.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, I think the first episode, Jenna Fisher is just there in an episode.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a great show. Check it out. I think it's on Netflix and all that. But it's worth checking out the DVD actually, because in the DVD there's like a special feature where it's like it's like a CD-ROM special feature, I think. Where you can read the script for what would have been the first episode of season 2 had they had it, and I think it's like an interactive script where while you're reading it, you see like concept art for it, which it's pretty interesting, and I mean it's a pretty funny episode too.
Yeah.
That's Undeclared, and I don't know. Is there anything else to really talk about with that one?
I mean, yeah, I got into this. I got into both of those shows because of you.
Oh, nice.
I hadn't even really heard of them. And then we ended up watching them on DVD, and yeah, developed a huge love for both of them as well. Undeclared, not
Nice.
quite as nuanced as Freaks and Geeks, but
Right.
it was just kind of a different kind of show. It was just more comedy than anything else. So I loved it too.
Yeah. R.I.P.
Good stuff.
Yeah. But I mean, all the actors from it are doing well, so.
They are, yeah.
Although, I kind of wonder if, in an alternate universe, it would be interesting to see specifically what kind of career Charlie Hunnam would have had.
Yeah.
Because if like because like he hit it big with Sons of Anarchy when he did his accent for that show, which he's British, so he speaks with an accent, which he has his native accent in Undeclared, and it's, I mean, just like his comedic timing in that show was really, really strong. It was really good.
Yeah.
And I kind of wonder what his career trajectory, wow, what his career trajectory would have been had Undeclared been successful and like a big hit, and what if they would have, audiences would have been introduced to him there. What would he be doing today?
Yeah, I wonder too. Also, I think on his episode of Nerdist, he basically just came out and said he's like, I'm just not as good at comedy and I don't enjoy doing it as much.
Oh, so that's the answer then.
Yeah. I remember him saying that because I remember him from Undeclared, and I thought he was really good in Undeclared, and so I kind of wanted to see him do more comedy, but I guess he's just a fan of the drums.
Yeah.
Fan of the drums.
Yeah. I just hate the show. I just hate Sons of Anarchy so much.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but yeah. So that's Undeclared. It's available on DVD on Netflix, I believe. And Tiny, why don't we? I don't know how to segue here. Why don't you fly over to the next one and fire up a discussion on this show?
Dear God.
Reverse that.
If you couldn't tell from that incredibly smooth transition, my first entry in this topic is Firefly, which I think Matt's right. Maybe a very close second to Freaks and Geeks in level of cult following / popularity.
It might even be tops. I'm not sure.
Maybe. I mean, it's apples and oranges. It's splitting hairs, basically.
Yeah.
But Firefly, remarkably popular now. I mean, cult context, cult following context. If you're unaware, Firefly was a show created by Joss Whedon. I believe it was either soon after or maybe like during the conclusion of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I think Angel went on for a couple more years. So I think he was kind of dividing his time between this and one or two other shows, I want to say. But Firefly it's kind of like one of the most succinct way to put it is it's like a space western. And it has tons of those, not only themes, but kind of style to it. Some of the characters have this kind of gunslinger, like hired gun kind of, bandit group kind of feel to them. And it's just very westerny, but it just happens to take place in space.
Right.
It takes place after there was a huge battle between two sides of humanity, basically, and one side lost and the other got control of everything. And the main characters we follow fell into the side that lost. And they kind of the main character, Malcolm Reynolds, Mal
Reynolds.
I couldn't remember his last name, and it was Mal, but he basically makes his living. He's kind of like a Han Solo kind of character, basically like a smuggler kind of thing. Makes his money wherever he can, kind of, and he just has this crew with him, and they just try to make their way through life. And it's really just a space western. That's what it feels like, and it hits all those themes beautifully, because he has this big chip on his shoulder that he's this, rough and tough exterior, but underneath he actually cares about his crew and he cares about people, and he doesn't rob from, he kind of also has like a bit of a Robin Hood kind of thing to him. He only steals from the privileged folks, or from the those who control everything. And so he has this charm to him, and you kind of have to peel back the layers of the character. It's he's just really well done. And he kind of gets thrust into this. He and his crew get thrust into this bigger scheme, sort of, with when they pick up some new people.
Right. I was at cargo.
Yeah, trying to be vague, but if you haven't seen Firefly, just buy the DVD. It's on Netflix, but just buy the DVD because it's just so good.
Mm-hmm.
There's some good supplemental stuff on the DVD package as well. I don't have it on Blu-ray. I assume it's also very good.
Yeah. If you don't mind,
go ahead.
This show is a show that is still today permeating pop culture and permeating like just culture in general, because twice in the past probably 3 months at work I've overheard like I overheard the other day, or I think this was a month or two ago, I don't remember. One day I overheard people talking as they were coming into the building, and like whenever someone comes into my building and I can tell that they're talking about a TV show or a movie, I eavesdrop to kind of figure out what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. And like I heard someone saying like it was only on for one season, but the reason that it didn't last was because the network kind of just like the network didn't air the pilot episode. It aired like the second episode because it was more action heavy, and that was completely messed up the continuity. And I was like, they're talking about Firefly. Mm-hmm. And then even then, like probably like a month ago, a lady came in and just asked me if I'd watched anything lately that I enjoyed, and she mentioned that her and her husband or fiance, I'm not sure, had just finished watching Firefly and Serenity, and I was like, yeah, that's those are great. That's great. So it still has a cultural impact today, and it's been a while since I've watched it, and I will say I've said this before on the podcast many times, but the episode Out of Gas is like one of my favorite episodes of any show that I've seen. It's so good, and
it's amazing. It's
one of the best bottle episodes I've ever seen of any TV show, if not the best. It's just so well done, and really makes you, if you're not already invested in the characters, it makes you more invested in the characters. And it also just it's just such a great episode, and it's such a it's such a great like love letter to the spirit of the show and Serenity, the ship. Mm-hmm. It's a really great display of Mal's relationship with the ship and what the ship means to him. Right. And I'm just a sucker for stories about that kind of connection.
Yeah, me too. And I think the show has, for me personally, one of the best theme songs ever.
Oh, absolutely.
Love it so much.
Yeah, totally. And there was one other point I was going to make. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, absolutely. And I would say for the two people who aren't familiar with Firefly or are curious about Firefly, I mean, it's been a while since I've watched it, but I feel like a good log line for it is it's the story of like, okay, what if a group of Confederate soldiers after the Civil War banded together to do outlaw things to survive, and what if all that was in space?
Yeah,
that's kind of how it is at the outset.
Very true.
And it's so good. And it's been a while since I've seen Serenity either. I need to break out the DVDs and watch all this.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah,
it's a great show.
Mm-hmm.
I think it also, I think it was canceled around the same time, within a year or two, of Freaks and Geeks.
Probably, yeah.
And it's same network. It was Fox.
I want to say Freaks and Geeks was NBC.
Really? Well, Undeclared was Fox.
Yeah.
And Fox was just canceling everything.
Oh,
they canceled Family Guy.
Right.
I mean, Fox
around the same time too.
Yeah, Fox was just like, screw it. We have 24. We'll be fine.
Right.
And it just got caught up in that, amongst other things. I don't think it was marketed very well.
No. The scheduling was all off.
Right. But yeah, thankfully it's found its place, and I mean, it got a studio movie after a while, so that tells you how good it is and how much people like it. If you haven't watched Firefly, just do it, because you'll love it. Even if you like sci-fi or westerns or both, it falls into both those categories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll just move right along. Again, I'm going to double up on this one with two failed shows. from Andy Richter, really. The first one is the better of the two. It's Andy Richter Controls the Universe, where, I mean, it's such a shame that this show didn't last or didn't
really
find an
is.
audience. It was so great.
It is.
For the uninitiated to it, it's on DVD, by the way, and I highly recommend checking out the DVD because I'm astonished that it even came out with a DVD set. But it's such a great show. It's about Andy, who is a technical writer, I believe, for I think it's like a weapons manufacturer or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Or like one of those companies that you don't know what they do, like GE.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah.
And it's just kind of a quirky sitcom show, basically. It's kind of a straightforward sitcom in that, not necessarily the workplace sitcom, but there's some good stuff there. I'm not doing it justice, but a big part of the show is his crush on the receptionist. This is even pre The Office, I think. But it's just a unique and zany sitcom, and really it just hit some really good comedic buttons. There's an episode where Conan O'Brien pops up. It's kind of later in the season, and there's what was it? It was something like I might have this wrong, but one of the lines that stuck with me was that there's a scene where someone says like, "Hey, I'm really sorry about your grandmother or whoever passed away," and and he says something to the effect of, "It's okay, she died doing what she loved, committing suicide." and and it's just so deadpan and everything. Kind of one of the opening jokes of the entire series, if I'm not mistaken. And it featured Andy Richter, and Paget Brewster was also in it.
Love Paget Brewster.
Oh, she's fantastic.
She's great.
Oh yeah. But one of the opening, I think this scene opens the series, so it sets the tone for the comedy of it. Is Andy walks into work and he realizes that he's like freaking out because he realizes that he left. It's a Monday morning and he left a sandwich in his desk drawer. But unbeknownst to him, a coworker of his that sits near him passed away that Friday at his desk, at the guy's desk, and he wasn't found until Monday morning. So the office smelled really bad. And so I can't remember the exact lines, but it's something to the effect of Andy, not knowing the full details of what's happening, notices the smell, and he goes up to the front of everyone as they're kind of all looking very downtrodden and sad and everything, and he says something like, "It's my fault. I didn't get rid of it. I didn't finish it. I just shoved it in the desk." And it's God. "I'm sorry about that. I'll get it all cleaned up and I'll get rid of it. I'll throw it in the dumpster."
Oh my God, that is funny.
And it's like that setup is so out there. It's so weird and so like it's such a premium comedy setup. Or it's like it's such an obvious comedy setup, but it's handled in such a earnest way, I guess. And Andy Richter's his delivery of the lines and the way that he carries himself in the show is just so great.
That's a lot of shows just wouldn't have the courage to go there.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's kind of like that kind of joke's like Dark without being dark,
right?
I mean, because it involves death, but you don't really see a body or anything.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff I don't remember a lot about this show. Again, I discovered it through you.
Right.
We watched it on DVD.
Yeah.
It's just a really brilliant show, and I think I keep mentioning how I think, or the reasons why I think these shows got canceled or whatever. I think the show was too high concept for a network audience.
Yeah.
Because it's about this guy has these fantasies in his head, and it's people just don't want that kind of complexity in their shows. They want something straightforward and simple. They want a Chuck Lorre show,
right?
And
something borderline relatable, to an extent,
right? And this show is too eccentric for that, and it's not even really that eccentric. It's it should be a very relatable notion to, have the idea that you can control things or whatever. You have these fantasies in your head or whatever. Everyone has those, but for some reason, people just don't want. I don't know. It boggles my mind that shows like this can't find can't find an audience.
Right.
I think today a show like this would just kill on like HBO or Netflix, something like that,
or even on network TV, because like this was a pre Scrubs era,
true,
which kind of had a kind of similar tone.
Yeah.
And a few years later, Better Off Ted was on, which that ultimately got canceled too. But it had a very like these two shows are like incredibly similar in tone and style. But another thing about Andy Richter Controls the Universe is I found is like some of the humor wasn't that relatable, but or it wasn't like a relatable kind of comedy show. It was more like a zany, wacky comedy show. But I found a relatability in Andy Richter's awkwardness around the secretary and how it's just he sold the awkwardness and so well, and I was like, I know how that feels. And then also kind of my final thought on the show is that another kind of standout is there's an episode, I think it's called Relationship Parachute or something like that.
Okay.
And like an example of how out there and weird and borderline dark the humor was in the show is that the episode is all centers around how Andy's neighbor in his apartment is a psychiatrist. So he gets, like, I think his cable was out or something. He gets entertainment out of eavesdropping on the sessions that the psychiatrist has.
Oh my god!
And it's like a soap opera. And so there's one patient that the psychiatrist has, who is this very gorgeous woman, who her kind of the big thing she talks about in her sessions is how she can't form a connection with someone, and like she's very sexually aggressive. In that no matter what, any type of guy or any guy that she dates, she'll like rock their world forever or regularly. But the second that they say "I love you" to her, she's done. She loses all attraction and she cuts bait and everything.
Jeez.
So Andy uses the information to get into a pseudo relationship with her, or a relationship with her. Strictly for sex.
Yeah.
And then the kind of main conflict of the episode is he finds himself falling in love with her. And it's like just outlining it that way is like really dark and really disturbing, but it works in the context of the show. I can't really explain it. You'd have to see it, but
right.
Yeah. And so again, I'm doubling up on these, but this one is going to be brief. About 4 years after Andy Richter was canceled, Andy Richter came out with Andy Barker PI. Tiny, did you ever watch the show?
No, I'm not familiar with it.
Okay. It's I think it's something like he was an accountant who quits his job for some reason and decides to start, I think he decides to start a PI firm or PI company.
Okay.
That's just him. And his office is in like a strip mall. And there's a video store next to him, run by Tony Hale.
Wow.
And Tony Hale, this was one of his first like post Arrested Development shows. And so Tony Hale is like obsessed with movies, and he kind of tags along with Andy Barker in the show. Tags along with Andy, solving cases and stuff. And he's always like making these like movie references and stuff. I think the episode titles, I think it only ran for like 7 episodes, so it didn't even have a full season. But the episode titles are patterned after old noir movie titles. So I think one was called Dial L for Laptop, and or something like that. And so it was good for what it was. I mean, it only lasted for 7 episodes, but I liked the concept of it. And I think at the time I was actually working as a private investigator for the company I work for now. Or the owner of the company I still work for now, but so I was like, oh, a PI show with Andy Richter. I'm a PI. I like movies and all that, so I gravitated toward that. Nothing like my job, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, so Andy Barker PI, if you can find it, I don't know if it's available anywhere, but it's worth checking out.
Okay.
So do you wanna go to your next one?
Absolutely. Up next is from 2006, Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. It was Aaron Sorkin's follow-up project to The West Wing, like right after The West Wing. It's a show that takes place. It's kind of a behind the scenes show about a SNL type show, sketch comedy show, and it's about the inner workings of what it's like to work for a major studio and be a really popular sketch show, and dealing with the fame and how you write a show like that and how you produce it, and all with the stylings of Aaron Sorkin as the showrunner and the writer. I really like this season, this show. I love it. There's no two ways about it. I've watched every episode probably 4 or 5 times. I just love Aaron Sorkin, and I love his style, and I think this is some of his better work, even amongst The West Wing and
The Newsroom, Sports Night. I
was going to say The Social Network.
There you go. Social Network, Steve Jobs.
Yeah, stuff like that. I think this is
still the American President.
Still some of his best work, really.
Yeah. I'm
You're just naming everything he's ever done.
Yeah.
Charlie Wilson's War, which is another one I love.
Right.
But I know Studio 60. I know you're not crazy about it. And I know me and our friend of the show and personal friend Greg Lenz, it's like his favorite thing ever.
Yeah.
Which it's not my favorite thing ever.
Right.
I think it's really awesome, and I love it. I think what I love about it is just the fact that it kind of breaks down how a lot of people don't think of TV shows, or when they turn on TV and they watch a show, they don't think about how it's a business, I guess.
Right.
And you see a lot of that in this show. You see how the producers and the presidents and the executives involved with the network have their hands in. They have a say in how everything plays out. And how the writers and producers have to take into account that they're literally part of culture. They have a voice, and what they talk about is literally it's important. People still to this day talk about hilarious sketches from SNL that are 25 or 30 years old, and Studio 60 kind of encompasses that and shines a light on what it's like to write something like that and be a part of something like that. And I think that's what I enjoy about it. But I think I know one of your complaints is that everyone kind of acts like they're saving the world on this show. Like they kind of treat their jobs like it's a little too like it's a little too important.
Right.
Like they're doctors or something. They're just doing silly sketches.
Yeah.
And I get that. I really get that. I get that complaint.
Well, and I have other issues with it, I guess. Studio 60 in the grand scheme of Aaron Sorkin's career, I haven't seen Sports Night. Okay. It's been a while since I've seen A Few Good Men. And I don't think I've ever seen The American President, but honestly, I think Studio 60 might be down there, kind of low,
really?
Like very, very low on the level of stuff of his. And I mean, yeah, okay, yes. One of my big gripes about it is that, yes, everyone, it's not that everyone in the show treats their job like it's saving the world or anything. It's that Aaron Sorkin is, and this is something that Aaron Sorkin does, but in Studio 60, Aaron Sorkin is using this world that he's created as a platform to talk about his view of the world and everything, which is perfectly fine. Like one of the things that worked so great about The West Wing was it's an idealized view of politics and the American political system. And it's a lot of Aaron Sorkin and his writers just idealizing the world in politics, basically. But with Studio 60, at the end of the day, it's about a sketch comedy show that comes on every week, which, sure, yes, it is reflective of the culture, and it is like comedy and satire and all that is a powerful tool to express the frustrations and express the viewpoints of people not really pushing an agenda, but to express the viewpoints of, or the ideologies of people in an entertainment format. Which that's all good and fine and everything. And Tiny, you mentioned that like people are still quoting SNL sketches from like 25 years ago. No one's quoting anything from Studio 60 because none of those comedy bits to me worked whatsoever. Like, it just, like, once it hit comedy, it just fell flat. Like, there was that whole thing with them trying to force in the word Jesus Christ, and
that was so funny.
I didn't think so. I really didn't. I thought that it was just so, like, it to me, and like, to each their own, but to me, that comedy sketch felt just like more like, hey, look how clever we can be by saying Jesus Christ and getting around the censors, rather than it actually being inherently funny. And the same with the Crazy Christians thing. I was just like, that's more agenda pushing and ideology focused than it is comedy focused. Like, if the comedy in the show was more refined and more comedically minded, or more comedically something, it's just none of the comedy really fell through, or none of the comedy really followed through. If the comedy was better, if the comedy was was better constructed by someone in comedy, then I would have bought into Studio 60 hook, line, and sinker. And the reason why Studio 60 didn't succeed was that it was competing, like it was that, I think, was it on NBC?
I believe so, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, if it was on NBC, then that's, for some reason, that was the season that NBC brought out Studio 60 and 30 Rock.
Yeah.
And there are two shows about the
inner workings.
The inner workings of sketch comedy shows, like SNL, but they were widely different in tone. And the reason, and I firmly believe that the reason why 30 Rock succeeded, or, I mean, it was kind of touch and go, but the reason why it lasted more than a season was because it had the comedy. And I mean, there are apples and oranges and everything, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's about a comedy show, and we don't need to see like one of the big, it might have actually been the pilot episode, but I think the big moment of the pilot episode of Studio 60, or the big like finishing part of it, was was that they had their whole like network thing, the meltdown at the beginning of it, and then to kind of recover from that, they did a parody of modern
from Pirates of Penzance.
yeah they do a long extended parody of the Pirates of Penzance.
The very model of a modern network TV show.
And I'm like, that's cool. It's not funny. I don't know why you're wasting time in this theoretical time frame of, like, I mean, maybe the point, and this is totally me trolling at this point, and I hope Greg listens to this episode, but I mean, maybe the point of Studio 60 was to show an alternate universe where Mad TV was the reigning champion, because the analog to Studio 60, or the SNL analog in Studio 60 was just did not work for me. So yeah,
I thought that part was pretty funny, actually.
To each their own. I mean, seriously. I mean, if you found humor in it, then more power to you, because I could not find it.
Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
And I know there was a run of like there was a 3-episode arc. Hilarious stuff. Toward the end that really spoke to you when you watched it. Do you want to talk to that?
Yeah. I mean, there's a part where one of the characters on the show has his brother is in the military, and he gets captured in Afghanistan, and for some reason, I know why. It's because I have a brother, and I'm pretty close with my brother. But like the moment he finds out about that part, it's like one of the strongest emotional reactions I've ever had to a piece of art ever. Just because I just related to it so closely and so strongly. It just really, I don't know. Like I just like fell apart during that scene, and it was just really incredible. So I really loved that story arc, and I think that definitely has an effect on my overall opinion of Studio 60. So I will admit that bias, but
well, I mean, if you if you found comedy and like if you found the comedy to be good, then more power to you. That was my main hang up on it. Also, I felt like the love story or the romantic subplot between Amanda Peet and Bradley Whitford.
Yeah.
This character, like that. I mean, that entire run, like I felt like there was no chemistry between them.
Oh, really?
Throughout the entire time, I was just like, "Oh my God, stop!"
Really?
Yeah, I laughed more at the sketches than I had investment in that in that subplot. That's how much I was not attached to it.
I mean, at first I thought it was forced at first, but I thought after an episode or two they really started to click, and I have the exact opposite reaction to it.
Maybe I need to revisit it. Maybe if we do a summer of Sorkin,
I'll
maybe I'll change my tune.
That'd be nice.
Then I'll be watch some hilarious Nick Cage impressions on it. That the characters, that's his only impression that he can do, but that's funny.
No, he does Tom Cruise
hilarious.
as well.
Oh yeah, Tom Cruise. That's impressions are freaking hilarious.
God.
Yeah. So anyway, if I haven't already driven this podcast into the ground, maybe we can flash forward to my next one.
Let's do that.
Yeah. Okay. These will be brief. I'll start with Drive. I think it came out in like 2007. It was on Fox. It's a show with Nathan Fillion. It was created or ran or executive produced or all of the above by I can't remember his name, but one of the guys from one of the producers of Firefly. And I want to say that Tim Minear. He was also the writer of the Out of Gas episode in Firefly, which I previously mentioned that I loved.
Yeah.
And Drive was a serialized show, drama action show where Nathan Fillion, his wife disappears, and he gets this mysterious, and this is all from memory, I don't remember much about it, but he gets this mysterious like invitation to a cross country road race, like Cannonball Run, or I'm blanking on the other example. That's
Rat Race,
stuff like that. Sort of, yeah. Seriously,
that movie's funny.
Yeah, it's a cross country, clandestine road race, and the winner gets like an obscene amount of money or something like that. And so this show had its problems. It only aired for six episodes.
Yeah, 6 episodes,
and it had like 7 and 8 like in the can, but they threw them online after it was canceled or something like that. And I don't even know if I watched the end of it because I was so annoyed that it got canceled and just bored with it by that point. But I mean, those first like 4 episodes, at least the first 4 or 5 episodes, were like really pretty good, and they had some really interesting, like Emma Stone's in the show.
Yeah.
And her father in the show is Dylan Baker.
Wow.
And it's got Nathan Fillion. It's got I almost just name checked a guy from 24, I think.
Wow.
I can't remember his name, but anyway, and one of the reasons why it failed, and this is my memory of Drive, one of my main memories of Drive is that the reason that it failed is that Fox, in their completely, in their infinite wisdom, decided that, context for it. I'm sorry. Context. Drive was released, or Drive premiered in, I think it was 2007. At that point in time, 24, the show that was an icon of TV in that era, premiered in 2001. After 3, or in season, I think in season 3 or 4 of 24, they decided to do these big like 2-night premieres where like Sunday night they would air 2 episodes back to back, and then Monday night they would air 2 episodes back to back, and then the next week they would have 1 episode on Monday at the regular time. Mm-hmm. And that was freaking amazing for 24. Yeah, because basically the way that 24 was structured was it's 24 episodes, and the first batch of episodes is all kind of just like misdirection and setup of the main plot, and like to have the first 4 episodes just dumped at you in a 48-hour time period was like bliss, because it got a lot of the junk out of the way that otherwise you would have done that. But Fox, seeing that 24, a heavily serialized show that is contingent on a ticking clock, in the structure that it's written as, seeing how successful it was with these 2-night premieres, decided to do the same thing with Drive and premiere like the first like 4 episodes all in one fell swoop on like Sunday and like Monday or whatever days that they aired. So it just didn't work. It just seemed moronic because, I mean, who's going to sit there and watch 4 hours of a TV show? Like, this is pre-Netflix streaming. This is pre-binge watching, like, before binge watching became this cultural phenomenon or cultural whatever. Like, no one at that time frame is going to sit through 4 hours of a show in a 2-day period to get a taste of it. Like, that's why you have a series premiere and have a good lead into it to get an audience and have them come back the next week. If they're going to sit there and, like, if they're on the fence after, like, halfway through the second episode and they drop it, they've lost, and they decide, well, maybe I'll watch it next week and see what it's like. They've lost 2 episodes of plot, and it's a serialized show. It's like, it was set up from the start to be just completely unsuccessful.
Right.
And the show was okay. No, it was, it was pretty. I am an apologist for it. I haven't seen it since like it aired probably, but there were a couple moments that were really, really cool. Like there's, I think it was the end of like episode 3 or 4. And also I have a slight bias here because at the time that this aired, I was on the cusp of about to buy my first car. Or I had just bought my first car, and my first car is the car that I have now. It's a 2006 Dodge Charger. So I had like the Mopar muscle in my mind,
right?
And so there's an episode where where Nathan Fillion he's being held by a cop who like pulled him over or something like that. He's being very belligerent to him. He has him held like in a secluded place. Turns out that he's involved in the race or something like that, and it's all like it's all set up to give him his car, because he used to be like a wheelman for like bank robbers or something like that, and his car was like I think it was a classic. Yeah, it was a classic Challenger.
Nice.
And it was freaking beautiful. It was like black and I think it had like red racing stripes or something.
Nice.
I mean, it was freaking beautiful. And like seeing that and then seeing him just hit the road in it, I was like, I am so into the show now. And then like it had a couple episodes where it kind of ended in a somewhat, I don't know, it was kind of weird because I'm a sucker for a well-placed like music drop. Like licensed music played over a montage or something like that. And there were a couple episodes that I'm blanking on what one of the songs were, but one of the songs, like it ended an episode where like Emma Stone and Dylan Baker had like an emotional moment where Emma Stone finds out a secret that Dylan Baker's been hiding from her or something like that. And it ends with like a montage of all the racers as they're going down the same damn stretch of highway. That's because I feel like the show could only film in a certain stretch of highway. So like the scenery for the entire race is like the same stretch of highway. It's ridiculous.
That's rough.
Yeah, but it was really kind of awesome because it was well done. Because it like they were like one of the big things was like Cape Canaveral or something like that, and there was about to be a shuttle launch or something, and they needed to get to a certain point before the shuttle like blasted off or whatever, and so they can see the viewpoint of the shuttle blasting off, and it goes through like all the racers and goes through all that while the song I can't remember the name of the song, but it's by the band Block Party. And it plays, and it's just I don't know, it worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, they got into some really weird stuff. It kind of got a little too dependent on mythology, and it drew some comparisons from people to Lost in a negative light. Like it was just like, oh, suddenly this person is a bad guy because we had a flashback to her something or whatever, and it was just kind of dull, and I don't even think I really watched the last couple episodes they dumped online. But anyway, Drive was okay. I wasted way too much time talking about it, but did you ever watch it, Tiny?
No, but I mean, it gets automatic cool points for Nathan Fillion.
Oh yeah, and he was the Tiny. He was the driving force of the show.
Was he?
He was.
I figured it'd be the cars.
Yeah,
because they're the ones. drive with the engine and the cars.
So the next show that I'm going to bring up, and we're running long, I think. Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's fine. The next show I'm going to bring up on this section is a show that I still stand by as saying that it could have been such a great show if it had the proper. As a concept, it's amazing, and if they had had the right people behind it, it could have been an incredible show. Flashforward.
Agreed.
Yeah, which is based on the Robert J. Sawyer novel of the same name, where in the novel, I think everyone on Earth blacks out for like a certain amount of time, and then when they wake up, everyone has had visions who, in the novel, it's 20 years in the future, I think, or something like that.
Okay.
But in the show, it's like, I don't remember how far in the future it was. It was like a few months or something like that.
Yeah.
So they all have a vision of the future, and like it played with some really interesting concepts for science fiction and all that. And man, if it just had the right staff and had the right people behind it,
Yep.
it could have been so good.
And the first episode was really good.
It was.
I think it hooked a ton of people, including me. I was like, this is the next Lost. It's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was at a time where everyone was like, is this going to be the next Lost? I think I think it started airing like while the last season was about to start airing.
Something like that.
Yeah, so it wasn't like oh, Lost just ended, let's fill it up with something else. But yeah, I think it was on ABC, so like there was even that's what it was. It was the show was aired like before the last season started airing.
Okay.
And there was like a scene where like two people are in a car and then there's like a billboard for Oceanic
That's
Air.
That's right.
Yeah. And the billboard said perfect record or something. Like our planes don't crash or something stupid like that. Like
that's hilarious.
No PR department would ever approve that. But yeah, so but the show was okay. It had some, I mean, if you want to see Seth MacFarlane play an FBI agent in the show,
God, I forgot about that.
Did you? Yeah, that happened. Seek out Flashforward. I think it is on Netflix or it's on Hulu or something. But
okay,
I mean, it could have been so good, and it was almost pretty good. It was almost acceptable, but then it just went off the deep end. I don't even remember really the plots of it. It had a full season, and it ended in a point that was kind of expectant of a second season, but had somewhat of closure. Dominic Monaghan was in it, and he played like a squirrely like villain character.
Yeah,
and it was so cool to see him in that role, like coming off of Lost. Mm-hmm. And man, it could have been so good.
It really could have.
And like you said, that first episode really did hook me.
Yeah.
Like it ends on like kind of a like the big like, oh crap, let's watch another episode moment of the pilot episode is that they're going through like video footage or something, and they realize that there's one person who was awake while everyone was blacked out.
Yeah.
Which that was kind of a main driving force for the season. And I don't know. It pains me to even talk about it because it really could have been like a great show.
Yep.
Yeah.
It really lost its way too. Mm-hmm. I feel like in the last maybe the last quarter, the last third of the season run that it had, it felt like they didn't know, they had no idea where they were going.
Yeah.
They were just shining a flashlight into darkness on what to do with the characters and the story. Mm-hmm. And it suffered for that, unfortunately.
Yep. And there was a great episode where I can't remember exactly what it was. Oh, also John Cho was in it.
Yeah.
And I mean, like that was when like John Cho, like I knew him from Harold and Kumar, and like I was like, John Cho is going to do like a drama series, and I'm like, I was so on board with that. I thought that would have been that was going to be so cool to see. And I think he's also in Sleepy Hollow, and I think that's run for a few seasons. But at that time period, I was like, man, I want to see him. I want to see his dramatic acting chops.
Yeah.
In this cool sci-fi potential replacement for Lost, but that wasn't the case. But
yeah, and it started Ralph Fiennes. Who Ralph Fiennes? Joseph Fiennes.
Joseph Fiennes, yeah.
Not Ralph Fiennes, Joseph Fiennes, who is kind of notorious as an overactor.
Yeah.
And that came
The
through.
iconic line.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It came through a couple of times on the show because he was loaded, okay?
Right?
Oh, man.
He played I think an alcoholic.
Recovering
alcoholic. And
yeah.
Oh,
man.
Courtney B. Vance. There's a GIF that is that line where Josephine says, it's a big emotional moment. It's a big dramatic moment where his boss is grilling him about why he can't remember something or something like that. And then he just bursts out and says, I was loaded, okay? And it's just such a really awkward delivery and everything.
Yeah.
And if you look at the GIF or watch the video, like Courtney B. Vance, he plays like his his superior in the series. And like you can kind of just see, I almost feel like that take in that scene was like the moment that Courtney B. Vance realized, like, I'm kind of above this show, guys. Because like the look on his face is like, and I'm not gonna get, nope, I'm gonna coast on this one then. Because it's just like, what just happened?
Oh my god, that's funny.
So flash forward, it was, it could have been so good. It could have been so good.
Yep.
But alas, it was not meant to be. And one of my favorite episodes of it was, I can't remember the specifics of it, but man, it was really, really cool. Because one of the agents in the show has like a crisis of conscience for some reason. I think that I can't remember exactly what it was, but like he comes across someone who was supposed to be saved, or like his flash forward had envisioned killing, I think envisioned killing this girl or something like that. And so to protect her, I think the end of the episode is he kills himself.
Wow.
And like it was a really strong episode. If I'm remembering it correctly, it's all kind of jarred here, but yeah, so I don't know. I want to read the book eventually to see how that does it, because I love the concept of it, but
yeah,
the show just wasn't up to snuff, and unfortunately now it's being discussed on an episode of a podcast.
Yes, it
about
is.
One Season Wonders.
Yep.
So Tiny, do you want to round us out?
I would be happy to. This will be the third or fourth appearance of Tim Minear, which we just mentioned.
Yeah. Third.
He was a producer on a show called Terriers,
right?
Which aired on FX before FX split into FXX or whatever. Anyways, it was a show that was. Yeah, he just produced it, and I think the creator was Ted Griffin, and I want to say was the guy from The Shield,
Sean Ryan. He was one of the co-producers or something like that.
Okay,
the former showrunner for The Shield.
Right. Okay. So it had some producing power behind it, if you will. The show was on FX in 2010, and it's about this. The main character, played by Donald Logue, was an ex-cop, recovering alcoholic. He becomes like a private investigator, and he teams up with like his best friend. So it's kind of straightforward in that respect. And the show had this really cool. It had a lot of episodic aspects to it, but it had this linear storyline that kind of picked up in like the second or third episode,
right,
and carried through the whole season. That was really intriguing. They kind of like uncovered a conspiracy.
Yeah.
And it played into a lot of the episodic storylines that they got themselves tangled up in. And that was a really satisfying story. I thought that was constructed really well. I really respect the balance of a linear story while also having one-off episodes and one-off stories in an episode. I think that's a hard balance to strike, and this show kind of stumbled at first in that respect, but definitely by mid-season and through the end of the season, they really found a way to balance those two things, and I think they did a great job with it. Unfortunately, the show was very poorly marketed, and I think everyone involved admitted that at the end.
I would say it was unmarketable, really.
Yeah.
I think one of the issues with it was the title was just
yeah. Title was bad.
Do you remember any of the marketing for it?
Yeah, it all involved a little terrier dog.
Yeah,
and it, people thought it was like a show about dogs and stuff.
Right.
And it's like, no, not at all. People didn't know before the show started. The marketing leading up to it really told you nothing about the show. And that's a huge problem. You need to know something about it.
Right.
Yeah. So it needed a better title. It needed way better marketing.
I remember there were a couple like little like advertising blocks, not like previews or anything, but just like kind of like teasers for it, where it just said like Terriers coming whenever, and it was just a shot of Donald Logue and Michael Raymond James.
Yeah, who's awesome actor.
He's fantastic. It was just Donald Logue and Michael Raymond James.
Yeah.
Wow. They were just sitting like on a beach on a bench or something with a dog next to them, and it's like this. That was the extent of the promo for it.
Yeah.
It just said nothing. And again, this also came at a time when I think I just finished working as a private investigator, and I was like, I kind of, maybe this will be up my alley. And again, not really much like what I did, but whatever.
Yeah.
Until there's a show where someone sits in a car for 8 hours staring at a house and telling nosy neighbors that the police are aware that I'm there and I'm a private investigator, then I'm not gonna have my former career depicted on screen.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
No problem.
No, if you're interested in some very, very candid discussion of this show, check out Donald Logue's episode of the Nerdist podcast.
Oh yeah,
because I think he was on. They recorded that episode like days or maybe weeks or maybe even days after it was announced that the show was canceled, and like just his attitude towards it, you could tell he was really disappointed and sad and stuff. But he's a guy who's just like, Donald Logue's just been around the block. He's been in huge blockbuster movies like Blade and the Ghost Rider, which whatever.
Sure.
But then he's been in he's had small bit parts in TV. He's just kind of done it all, and I think he really understands the business side of this whole thing, and he got it. He was like, we each underperformed. That's all there is to it. He's like, I'm really proud of the work. I think we did a good job, but we just couldn't find an audience, No one really takes all the blame for it. That's a really good episode if you want to hear extended discussion on the show. But it was really good. There's you mentioned the show, the episode of Firefly, Out of Gas. There's an episode in this.
Was it the one with the flashback?
It's a flashback episode. Yeah, it's kind of about how the characters met.
Rockman Dunbar is also in the show, and he was. I think that's his name. He was really good in it.
He was, yeah.
Yeah, I think he's in The Path now on Hulu, which we'll have a bonus episode about that when it concludes. But anyway.
But that episode is another classic example of dedication to character development and how it can be so important, and it can really supply foundation for a story and developing a show and finding an audience hooked in the show. Because I want to say that was like the 4th or 5th episode out of 12 or 13, and I was just like, after I saw that, I was like, I hope this show takes off.
Right.
And of course, I think maybe 3-4 weeks later, they're like, nope, that's it.
And Tim Minear was the person credited with writing that episode, but who he was also credited for Out of Gas. So
wow.
There you go.
So he has a knack for that.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Oh yeah. Strong character episodes.
I don't know if this show's available anywhere now, Netflix or Hulu or anything like that. I want to say
it might be on Netflix, but
I don't know.
but I'm not sure. But it's worth mentioning that it's kind of funny in a weird way. This was brought up on our bonus episode that I did for Mad Dogs, which was on Amazon, also co-produced by Sean Ryan, and there's some interesting parallels between the two of them because and it's kind of interesting. What year did Terriers come out? 2010?
2010.
Yeah, and now it's 2016 and Mad Dogs came out. It's in the era of binge watching shows. It's on a streaming service where the entire first season was put out like in one fell swoop. And I'm sorry if you listened to that episode, and this is rehashing it, but I brought this up before. It's just kind of interesting to see the dichotomy between these two shows, because they're both horribly titled shows.
Yeah.
Both have to do with dogs, oddly enough.
Huh.
And Mad Dogs informs nothing about the plot of the show or anything like that. And doesn't even really come into play in the show that heavily. But it's just interesting that show had some a little bit of success. I mean, it didn't get renewed or anything. Actually, the way that it happened was Amazon approached Sean Ryan and Chris, I can't remember his name, but the other producer, about having a second season, and they pitched a second season to them, and then Amazon's like, no, why don't you do this instead? And then they're like, no, we're just going to leave it be at one season. So they chose not to do it.
Okay.
There's a whole series of tweets that Sean Ryan posted after it was like, man, I have so much respect for that guy.
Yeah.
Because it's like he had so much candor in those tweets. He's like, hey, yeah, just, it didn't work out. We're very proud of the story that we told. And just we didn't want to sacrifice our artistic vision for the show. So we decided to just call it a day. And I was like, that's a perfect way to address or announce that the show wasn't going to move forward. But anyway, Mad Dogs was pretty good. Check it out on Amazon Prime. But it's just interesting that I wonder if Terriers was released today on a streaming service. I wonder if it would have been renewed for a second season, because people have the chance, like back then, like on FX, like they had those promos and everything, but they had one episode to go off of, then they had to wait a week, and then if their schedules matched up or if their DVR wasn't too full or whatever, they could watch it and decide from there. But like here, we have the luxury of having it all at once, unless you're on Hulu, but even then they do a pretty good job of promoting their stuff.
Right.
It's just interesting to think about the different eras of television that we've both lived in.
Yeah, and this was only 6 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, how quickly it's all changing.
Oh yeah. And it's also worth mentioning, if you're thinking about checking out Terriers and if it's available on streaming, I'm not sure if it is or not. It was on Netflix for a while, I think. But if you're thinking about checking it out, it ends on a really, like, it tells a complete story, and it ends on like the ending of the last episode is really, really well done.
Yeah, I agree.
So, yeah. So that's the end of our discussion of TV show One Hit Wonders. We ran kind of long on this episode. But so in lieu of potpourri, we're going to have a call-in from Mike, our podcast co-host, who's on sabbatical from the podcast, one of his after viewings call-ins and stuff. Yeah, should I go ahead and announce the name of it?
Yeah, sure.
Of the segment? Yeah, it's going to be hopefully a recurring segment called Mike's Pine Tree Perfume. So stay tuned for that, and hopefully I'll have a little thing to play during it.
Nice.
So yeah, anyway, stay tuned for that. And thank you for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Hey guys, hey Matt, hey Tiny, it's Mike. I'm back with another late night, midnight after my movie, I guess weekly installment of my little mini potpourris, which I'm not sure what we're going to call them yet, but my little whiff of pine tree air freshener in my car. So, the guys and I, since I'm not able to be on the show on a regular basis, the guys and I thought it would be a fun idea if I kind of phoned in my thoughts about my weekly movie night. So the idea is that I'm super tired, I'm driving home, and I just got out of a movie. This week, I saw The Jungle Book, directed by Jon Favreau and starring some little kid. Also, there are several voice actors, Bill Murray, Idris Elba, most notably Christopher Walken is in there. Anyway, really, really fun Pretty spectacular movie. My friend Jake and I were kind of both really surprised, and not super excited going in. I wouldn't call myself a Jungle Book fan by any means. I know it's a pretty important book and movie for a lot of people, but I was never really a fan. In fact, we were talking this morning about how this is one of many live-action adaptations of Rudyard Kipling's original work, and I guess almost adaptations of the original animated Disney classic. But we were talking this morning about the 1994 Jason Scott Lee version, which is pretty much everybody but me forgot about, and so not in the world, but of my colleagues, they kind of forgot about it. So I kind of went into this movie with really low expectations. I thought the trailer looked cool. One of the things we talked about with the trailer was how it, the beasts, the animals in the jungle, they kind of popped out of the screen in a way that they popped out of the widescreen format of your TV. Like there's the black bars at the top, at the bottom, which used to bug people before widescreen was commonplace. But the animals came out past those, which was kind of a cool thing. And so really that alone made me really want to see this movie, because I had a feeling it was going to be a feast for the eyes, something to behold in terms of CGI effects. I don't know that I would call them perfect special effects, but they were state-of-the-art, as good as it gets. Simple plot is Mowgli is a boy who grew up in the jungle. He's like not really sure who he is, who he belongs with, and Shere Khan, the evil tiger, wants him banished or killed because men, which Mowgli is, can wield the red flower, which is fire. And so it's basically about Mowgli's adventures and who he meets along the way. A couple of missteps, if I have to pick any out. I really feel like the songs were shoehorned in. They do King Louie's song and also Bare Necessities with Baloo, which seemed almost to satisfy old fans of the cartoon, but really, particularly King Louie's song seemed kind of out of place. I didn't mind the Baloo one so much. I thought that was pretty fun, but King Louie's song was a little strange. Didn't quite fit. However, speaking of King Louie, his little action set piece, I guess I shouldn't say little, his action scene was huge. It was awesome. The gravity of the situation was really came through. So I'm running out of words, and that's kind of where this midnight thing is coming along. I'm feeling pretty tired, and one of my contacts is like rubbing in my eye weird, and so I'm trying to like stay awake and also talk to you guys. But anyway, King Louie was cool. I have a feeling that little kids aren't gonna like that very much. I think it might be a little too scary for little kids. I also thought that the boy playing Mowgli was not any better than your standard child actor. In fact, he kind of super cute kid, but also a bit overacting at times. Other than that, the good stuff is that the voice acting was incredible. The way they matched the words with their lips was really some of the best talking animal stuff I've ever seen. And what I really appreciated about it is in a lot of those types of movies with talking animals and action and movement, the animals do human characteristics. They do human things, like brush things aside or use their paws in a manner that looks as if they're hands. And I really like the respect that the filmmakers, Jon Favreau, paid to the animals being animals and not being able to move and really just using their claws and so on and so forth. But the voice acting was incredible. The performances were incredible. I think I would be too hard on Bill Murray to say he was phoning it in, but Bill Murray kind of has that drony voice that can kind of almost sound like phoning it in, but with a character like Baloo, it really works. So overall, the movie was something to behold. State-of-the-art CGI, as close maybe as we're ever going to get to completely photorealistic. Really, really, really fun family movie. I can't wait to watch it again when I'm a little less tired, and I can't wait to talk to you guys again next week with, I don't know what movie it's going to be, but it's been fun. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to The Obsessive Viewer, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at ovpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast app. The Obsessive Viewer's theme song is An Eclipse of Events and is provided by Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. You can find that and more great music from them on iTunes and like their Facebook page at facebook.com/loudlikemusic. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can email the hosts individually at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at ObsessiveViewer.com, or send an email to the podcast in general at podcast@ObsessiveViewer.com. Check out the Obsessive Viewer blog at ObsessiveViewer.com, where we post movie and TV reviews and the occasional editorial about the business of entertainment. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer and follow us on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer, at ObsessiveTiny, and at IamMikeWhite. If you want more obsessive content in your life, check out our sister site, ObsessiveBookNerd.com, for book reviews, author spotlights, and a general celebration of reading. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. Again, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Be excellent to each other.
Because I was loaded, okay?